the leading ex-provost, Jim O'Donnell, now a man in retirement, semi-retirement.
I've been promoted to the classroom, please.
Changed his name as well, I noticed. And has brought a fresh and even more exciting panel of distinguished people here. And they have plenty of time, so you've got plenty of time for questions. All those questions you didn't dare ask your own leaders in your academic space. And you can ask them, you can put your hand, you can wear a burqa or something if you like, in case you're worried. If you can find. So, Jim, roll.
Anthony, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you here again. We appeared on this stage a year ago with a different panel of speakers in a panel on what provosts think librarians should know. It was well received, but afterwards, Katina came to us and said, "So do you think you could do it again next year?" Well, yeah, I'm sure. But she said the feedback made it clear that there was one change people would like to see. Last year, we had a distinguished, engaged, entertaining, optimistic, supportive panel of provosts. She said, "Do you think this time you could find people who were less nice?" I said, "No. But you of all people realize in this room, in this hotel, in this town, that what we all share in common, however distinguished and successful we are, is an inability to say no to Katina." So a negotiation had to follow. We agreed, because I explained to her carefully, that provosts are indeed, by genetics, by training, by experience, simply the nicest people in the world. You know this from your own experience. If one of us tried to snarl at you, it would be so evidently lame and phony you would simply giggle and we wouldn't even try. So we settled not for lack of niceness, but for frankness and directness. This is an opportunity to talk about issues that perhaps sometimes you are a little bit nervous about talking to your own campus leaders about, as Anthony indicated. I think we did have some success in that last year, and I hope we will today. I'm going to introduce our three speakers, let them then speak, and then we will turn it over to Lord Anthony from Downton Abbey to referee the question and answer period. Reading left to right. To my left, Beth Paul is provost at Stetson University in Florida. She came there in 2009 as provost after years of increasing responsibility at the College of New Jersey during a time when that institution made real transformations and steps forward. She is herself a psychologist and has particular interest in community and service learning projects in the university. To her left, Janine Stewart, also a psychologist, is the new provost at McDaniel College in Maryland. She had served previously for 5 years as provost at Hollins University in Virginia, and had before that made her bones, as it were, in an increasingly responsible series of positions and a distinguished career at Washington and Lee University. Finally, to bring a little diversity to the panel, we have John Vaughn. John Vaughn is also trained as a psychologist. This was not a theme I was looking for in particular. But John has been with the American Association of Universities, the association of the leading American research universities, since 1980. Since 1996, he's a little bit ersatz, but I'm going to say that he serves as provost of the AAU in his role as executive director there, where he sees and understands the issues that face our largest institutions. He's also an old friend and colleague of mine and of libraries in general. He has particular responsibility in AAU for issues involving intellectual property, information technology, scholarly communications, and the like. Since he comes not from the dreaming spires of Georgetown, across Rock Creek Park, far away from all of those other people, but actually works on the east side of Rock Creek Park down in the real Washington, he has, unlike the rest of us, at least met people who are not nice, or he has at least seen episodes of House of Cards and knows what it would be like. So he may be able to channel something a little blunter than the rest. My warmest thanks to my colleagues for making the time and effort to come down and join us. I told them all true things about what a splendid occasion the Charleston Conference is, and I think they are finding that out. But I will now turn the podium over to them, and in the order in which I introduced, I will ask then Provost Beth Paul to begin. Thank you all for coming.
Good morning. I feel as though I must start with either a bark or a growl. And I am afraid that I offer neither, but what I do offer is a rallying cry to all of you to not just consider yourselves leaders of libraries or associated with leaders of libraries, but really to be leaders of higher education. So my remarks this morning are talking about the very important role, and I would dare say unique role, of the university library and library leaders as institutional change agents. This is a quote from what you will recall as the 2006 Spellings Commission report. Does that sound like it was a long time ago? That was in 2006. And I must say, I don't think this has changed much. So American higher education has become increasingly risk-averse, at times self-satisfied and unduly expensive. It's an enterprise that has yet to address the fundamental issues of how academic programs and institutions must be transformed to serve the changing educational needs of a knowledge economy. It needs new paradigms. Yet, this was 2006. We have cries that predate that, and we still find ourselves behind the 8 ball. We still find ourselves confronting a dire need for change. Let me tell you a bit about Stetson University for those who don't know about Stetson. Stetson is a private university with 4 locations in Central Florida, spanning the center of Florida, so from DeLand at the easternmost point, all the way to Gulfport at the westernmost point. We have at this time about 2,700 undergraduate students. We're growing to 3,000. And we have about 1,400 graduate students with about 1,000 in law. We are primarily residential. We have 4 colleges and schools that organize the academic program. We do have a very strong liberal learning core, and the character of learning that we emphasize at Stetson University has to do with rigor or challenge, relationship, a close personalized interaction among students, faculty, and staff, and also with a sense of responsibility, bigger than oneself. We are wonderfully endowed with 2 libraries at Stetson University. The main library, the DuPont Ball Library, is multidisciplinary, so it supports the College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Music, as well as the School of Business Administration. And it is this library that I'll be giving you some examples from primarily today. We're also very, very pleased to support the Dolly and Homer Hand Law Library, which is in our Gulfport campus. It is unidisciplinary, focusing on the legal field, supports the College of Law, and we do have a satellite library at our at our Tampa Law Center campus. So, one university in the national higher education landscape. 2009, I joined Stetson University with the new president, Wendy Libby. We came in July and found an institution that had been struggling for quite some time. We found an institution that had been perhaps coasting, not thinking strategically, not taking care to balance university resources in a careful way. And so we walked into an institution where the enrollment goal had missed by about 20%, and the budget hadn't been balanced for quite some time. And the phrase, and I dare say I don't even want to say it with my 3 colleagues in the audience because it will send shivers up their spine, but the conversation years and years before that was budget stabilization. Every year it was about budget stabilization, which meant cut everywhere. So our goal has been to restore Stetson University as a very important higher education institution in the landscape nationally. And what is so important in this effort is the mission of the institution. And I suspect those of you who are at higher education institutions, you can also identify the critical nature of your missions to the future of higher education as well as to the future of society. So draw strength from that, draw passion from that, and remember that higher education is an important answer to many of the social issues that we face. So draw strength from the mission. And that is what we've done. We've become more bold about our messaging, about the place of Stetson University in the higher education landscape. And families and students are being very responsive to that. Fast forward, we are now from a low of about 1,950 undergraduate students when we first came here. We're up to 2,700. We have great response from students and parents. We're now able to start growing the faculty. We're now able to start growing the staff. So it is a success story. But I want to tell you about the way that the library has been a unique change agent in that process. When I arrived at Stetson, not to share dirty laundry in front of all of you, but honestly, I had one strategic leader among my team, or the team that I inherited, and that was the director of the library. And if not for her, a long-serving director of the library, and the kind of innovation that she was bold enough to continually do in that library, I don't think our transformation would have been so successful. And I'm going to spell out for you why I think that's true. So, the remainder of my remarks are about the role of the university library and library leaders in university renewal. You are essential to university renewal. So, universities, in many ways, the libraries are more reflective than our academic departments of what society needs from higher education. So the libraries are where interdisciplinarity is natural. Libraries are supporting students in learning multiple literacies. Libraries are swimming versus drowning in information. Libraries are innovating and being bold about defining ways to swim, to make positive the increase in information rather than to drown in it and simply to, quite frankly, become denying of this new information because it's simply too overwhelming. And libraries are nimble, they take risks, they're adaptable, they've had to. This is the DuPont Ball Library. I will speak most about this library as the multidisciplinary library, and that's really an emphasis that I want to build upon. So what are the critical roles of library leaders? Now, I didn't mean this to look like a beehive or some, I didn't mean it to look like a honeycomb. In fact, had I been more clever, I would have made this as multiple hats. The Stetson University was funded initially by John B. Stetson, which is why it has the name Stetson, the hat maker. So I easily can construe this as the number of hats that our librarians take, and I could add them so that it looks like a tall order, and it is a tall order. So some of the critical roles of library leaders: bridges, educators, path makers, integrators, innovators, success coaches, change agents, role models, hosts, collaborators, and they're neutral. So let me draw out some of these and talk about some examples. So first, change agents and path makers. Library leaders, by necessity, have been adaptive leaders. They have constantly adapted the business model of the library. Some of the recent innovations, which some of my colleagues have presented on nationally, have been demand-driven acquisitions, our ebook program, which has been incredibly successful. Library leaders have to be proactive versus reactive. They have to be innovative and resourceful. They're future-oriented, so they're looking at leading change. Even the conversation that we've had this morning, it is about leading edge, not lagging. And so you are very, very important change agents in the universities. You are used to, you know how to make new paths, and that is different than many other areas of the institution. You are innovators. You are proactive versus reactive, as I've mentioned. You discover, you develop, you look for new tools almost constantly. You are constantly looking at the integration of technology. Rather than being afraid of it, you must integrate technology into what's happening in the library. And so you are doing that with great aplomb. You are academic innovators. You are inciters. So under the guise of service provision, You are introducing new strategies and new resources as triggers for faculty, for students, for pedagogical advancement, for research advancement. You are these seeds that are being built around the institution that are really inciting all sorts of changes. And you're doing that in a safe way, which is very different than, I think, what I can do, for example. You play a very important contrasting role. Educators. Certainly you are some of our most prized experts in learning. You are also very important informants about students as learners. So we observed that this morning. You are frontline observers. You are interacting with students on a daily basis. You are watching their learning process. You are watching how they are manipulating or interacting with all different kinds of resources for learning. And so you have a very important role in faculty and staff development. Don't underestimate the expertise that you have that can have an impact well beyond the walls of the library. You are hosts. You are hosts that create a very important sense of place in a world where sense of place is dwindling. We are human beings. Maybe there's a reason that we're all psychologists up here. Excuse me. We are all human beings, and human beings have need for connection. They have need for community. They have need for relationship. Yes, you can get some of that virtually, but some of it you can never get virtually. And so emphasizing library as place is essential. We need our libraries to be places for wonder, for expanding one's mind, for transformation. This idea of collision, it reminds me of the movie Crash that featured Don Tweedle. And the point of that movie was that we have become so disconnected in society and so obsessed with our electronic modes of communication that we've forgotten how to interact. And so the premise of the movie is the only way we know how to interact anymore is by crashing into one another. And I think there's an interesting parallel to that. We want to be a place for intellectual interaction and celebration. One of the things that we host in our library is an undergraduate research celebration, where students from all over the state came and presented undergraduate research projects with their faculty and families attended. What a wonderful celebration of the work that happens. Library leaders as building a sense of community, belongingness, wellness. This happens to be a study time, a study break. We take care of our students. Come to the library, we take care of you. We'll support you in this challenging business of intellectual development. It's a place for innovation, intellectual play, experimentation. And mostly it is a place that helps us to reinforce intellectual identity as part of a life well lived. To me, that's a very important element of the library in our communities. Library leaders are success coaches. Certainly the trend of learning commons, and we're seeing a great increase in partnership with student success and integrating various student success elements into our library. We also have many of our librarian staff and faculty trained as success coaches. So an integrated student success coach model, where we are all part of our students' progression, positive progression to graduation. So I believe library leaders play a very important role in retention and progression. And you're a student employer. You are a career developer. There is great transferability of librarian skills. Every single one of our students would benefit from that. Many of our libraries have the highest proportion of the student employees on campus. How are we turning that into a purposeful learning opportunity so that it is a purposeful part of career development? You are neutral. You are safe, trusted, apolitical. I'm not making comments about you as individuals, but as a group. And so, you play a special role, a central role in the university. In our institution, our library faculty play very important roles in faculty governance, in shared governance. We have had chairs of the curriculum committee, of the academic technology committee, of the provost think tank, essentially, the academic planning advisory council. We have had a chair of the tenure and promotion committee. Now, yes, this is a heavy hat that gets put onto our librarian faculty. I would dare say they have some of the highest service loads in our university, but they play critical roles, and being seen as university-wide leaders and being appreciated as neutral leaders plays a very critical role in the advancement of shared governance. You play a neutral role in curriculum development. And so our librarian faculty have been very, very important in general education development, for example, but also disciplinary and interdisciplinary curriculum development. And I must say, most important for me as provost is the role of the library dean on my senior academic leadership team. This has been a very, very important role. I did commute the role from a director position to a dean position, and I did that deliberately because I see the library as one of many, but a very important agent of learning for all of our students. And it is very important on my team to have this neutral person, to have this university-wide leader. So among my deans, what I say to my deans is the first thing you are is a university leader. You are not the leader of a separate little 501c3 that happens to be cohabiting on our campus. You are a university leader. And having the dean of the library there helps to punctuate that and helps to continually draw everyone to a university frame of perspective. Your collaborators and bridgers, you are one of the best coalition builders inside, outside the university. You are developing partnerships on behalf of the institution in many, many important ways, mutually beneficial in all sorts of ways. Your bridges to new information and knowledge between people and entities. You are new student and faculty socializers. One of the things that our dean of the library did last year was to meet with every single prospective faculty member. Met half an hour with every prospective faculty member, and we hired 30 faculty last year, so it was quite a tall challenge. But this was very important. This established a partnership between the faculty and the library right from the beginning. Also, we have personal librarians assigned to all incoming students. Many of you probably do that too. It's a very important transitional function for our library. You are integrators. It's a place for interdisciplinary percolation. For teacher-scholar integration, I always say that the hyphen is the most important part of that phrase. It is coming together as learners, so faculty coming together as learners with students and with staff. You are a very vibrant learning community. You're reducing boundaries and silos. You are an important agent in connecting academic and student affairs. And finally, you're role models. You're curious. You think ahead. You look into the future. You're risk takers, path makers. You're incredible university stewards because you've had to be. I know it's easy to feel bad about that because it's often not fun, but take pride in it. Wear it as a strength that you have to model to the rest of the institution. Look at what you've done with that. You're incredibly responsible managers of all kinds of resources, human and other. You use assessment very effectively, use of data for continuous improvement, innovation, fiscal responsibility. And you are very good at making strategic choices, which require clarity of goals, clarity of purpose. So those are the hats that I see our library leaders having, and they are essential. I am mindful of some of the personnel choices that we make about libraries because it's work that I've been working on at Stetson over the last few years. And I will say to you, the model at our DuPont Ball Library is very different than the model at our Hand Library for Law. So the decisions we have to make is, what about the roles of library staff, faculty, tenure, non-tenure, term limited? Should it be a mixture? We need to have versatility. We need to have refreshment in our library because I'm looking to you to be a university leader. I'm looking to you to be a change agent in our environment, a special change agent because of your neutrality, because of the experience that you've had. Should it be a dean or director level position? So I was very deliberate. First of all, we have faculty, librarian faculty, and I believe that's very important if we're construing the library as leaders of learning. But we also have a dean now of the library, and I'm very happy to say it's our first endowed dean position, which I also think symbolically becomes very important. We also have a dean, and that sends a very important message as well about the punctuation of learning in our environment, and the very important role that library leaders play. Finally, my final point is we need to feed you. So if I'm going to put all those hats on you, then I have an obligation to you. I have an obligation to support you. I have an obligation to support your ongoing professional development because I need you to be cutting edge. I need you to be looking to the future and playing in the future. But I also need to help you have development as leaders. So leadership development is something that we have not done well in higher education. And I would say it needs to start with librarian leaders. So leadership development, professional development, we support you. I'm sorry I didn't bark more or growl more, but I appreciate everything that you do every day.